Right, welcome everyone. This is episode 40 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and today we've got a special episode. And to give you more info and some details is my good friend, Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hey, Chris, and hi, guys. Welcome to the Comics in Motion podcast and today's special bonus episode. We're delighted to have the creative team behind the horror comic Our Final Halloween. We've got Emmy Award-nominated writer Mike Garley, and artist and illustrator Mike Lee Graham, who's going to be known from this point on as MLG. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hi.
Hi. Great to be on board.
Great stuff, great stuff. So I think what I'd like to do is to dive right into the story first, so Our Final Halloween. So where did the inspiration for this book, this story come along?
Strange enough, it's Mike Garley talking now. Context will probably help. The idea actually came from a meme I saw. I can't actually say which one it is because it will kind of ruin a twist in the book.
Oh, yeah.
But it's inspired by like our love of 80s horror. And me and MLG have been wanting to work together for a while. So we've talked about story ideas and kind of I had this idea and I approached him with it and everything kind of just gelled and fell into place. But it comes from a lot of different things, a lot of ideas and concept. But it's basically our love of stuff like Lovecraft and Carpenter. And then just from talking, we kind of defined what we wanted to create. And we've tried to create something really unique, which kind of fits both of our styles.
Yeah. I think as well, he's very clever because obviously we've read the preview in that, and straight away, obviously, you guys, you're on Kickstarter with these projects, aren't you? And I know at the moment, in the space of a week, you're at 63% of your target, which is fantastic. So yeah. That's really good. And we've even pledged ourselves because we want to know what happens in the rest of the story. So.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
I think most of our pledges are probably from reviewers who just want to read the rest of the story. So it's worked out quite well for us.
It's been a good angle, actually. Yeah. Here's the preview.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. To be fair, it's good. It's the best way to do it as well.
Yeah. Well, the comic's pretty much finished. We've got it all being listed at the moment. So we're hoping to send that out to everyone soon, so we can get a few more reviews in. But we wanted to have a nice sizable chunk, so we can get like a proper flavour of the comic. I normally like to have comics completely finished before I start a Kickstarter, but we wanted to produce something that was kind of like intrinsically linked to Halloween. So like our whole concept is we're having a Kickstarter from October the 1st to the 30th, and on the 31st we're going to release it. So instead of waiting for the money to come in like 2 weeks like you normally do, we're just sending it out to everyone so they can read it straight away. So because of this, we've gone for a digital comic. But it just meant that we've had to do things in a slightly different way. But it seems to be working so far. And I can't remember what percent we're on, but we're slowly approaching 200 backers, which is what we're really proud about, because this one's not really about money. It's about us doing a comic that lots and lots of people will read. We want to make it like a proper community out of it. So it seems to be working well for that angle.
I think that's really good as well. And I think the power of social media as well, with stuff like what the projects and that, it helps so much these days as well. And the ease of you getting into Kickstarter and sort of backing something, I really like it. I do. I mean, like I say, I'm not a comic book reader since I was a kid. I've mentioned this loads of times. I'm going to bore David the same old story, fortunately, guys. It's fresh for you. But I was a Beano and Dandy reader, and that's where my comic book thingy ended when I was like 11, 12 years old. I religiously read them. So they got me back into this and picking this up. I'm 40 in a few weeks, and I never thought, I'm a big gamer and all that. So I'm not like I try and act my age. I'm definitely still a child at heart. So as you can tell by all of the stuff around me, but it's really opened up a lot of things, and I really enjoy reading it. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the podcast. I genuinely mean that. As soon as I finished reading the preview and I realized it was on Kickstarter, I backed it straight away. So it's like, let's go for it. We both agreed on that. Dave was the same. So
yeah,
it's a great idea.
It's a good preview. I think it's. Also, like I sort of forget to read the script after I've done my panels and stuff, and I kind of know where the speech bubbles are going to go. I just kind of get stuck into the artwork, and sometimes it's nice for me to kind of like go, oh, actually, I can actually read this, and yeah, it just all really comes together. And yeah, you know, I think I'm allowed to say this. I think it's a pretty strong preview. So yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for people to see what the rest of it is like, because it does get super duper weird from there. So you know, if you liked the preview, then I feel pretty confident that you're going to like the rest of it.
Awesome. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that story? So obviously Chris and I have read it. I love the kind of 80s horror feel to it, but can you talk, obviously without spoiling the preview and what, a little bit about that?
Sure. So basically it's about these 5 teenagers who wake up in an abandoned house on Halloween. They've got no idea how they got there. They've got no memory, and they're covered in blood. And there's like a portal in the middle of the room and something coming out. So they have to run, and they have to try and figure out what's happened, why they're there, why they've got things written on the wall, why there's things written on their arm, and whose blood they're covered in. So we think it's a pretty neat little tight concept, where it's about these teenagers in this house trying to figure out this mystery as these horrific monsters start to appear.
Oh, great. And I'll be honest with you, at 6'2" and 15.5 stone, I'm the biggest coward when it comes to horror films. So I absolutely will be, even on, you know, reading it properly when we get the full release, I will literally be crapping myself without. Yeah, I'm all in on it, guys. Definitely, sounds really good.
We might have to use that as a quote.
Sure, yeah.
Don't generally hide behind the sofa with a book, though, Chris. So you'll have to find some other way.
Oh no, yeah.
So again, what was the inspiration for having the music as well? Because again, I've only heard the little clip that you put up on Twitter, and as soon as it played, I was like, oh, this is the 80s, and it sort of takes you right back there. It's absolutely brilliant. So where did that idea come about?
That was just a bit of luck. I've got a friend, Ian Alex Mack, and he's a composer, and he's incredible. The music he creates is so evocative of whatever he's trying to score, basically. So he did music for one of my old books called Samurai Slasher. So as soon as we kind of started talking about this concept and obviously the influences, I immediately thought it'd be great to get him on board. We actually just today I did an update about his music, so I showed some of the Samurai Slasher music who haven't heard it. But yeah, his music's fantastic. I think we were going to really enjoy reading the comic with the music in the background as well. But I've always liked the idea of kind of creating like a package, so it's more than just, you know, it makes it like a whole experience. So then, yeah, again, it just helped us tie into this event we wanted to create for Halloween.
No, it's great. Perfect timing as well. Perfect timing with the dates and stuff.
That's a really interesting concept, though, isn't it? So you mentioned there about playing the music in the background to while you're reading it. So do different pieces of music fit to different parts of the story, or?
No, it would get a bit too difficult to kind of score because everyone reads at different paces.
Yeah.
So it's kind of your relationship with a comic, isn't it? You take your own time, and MLG's artwork is so stunning that I think quite a few people will be reading it quite slowly to make sure they soak it all in.
Okay.
So I think that would have been a bit too difficult.
Yeah, that's why I asked. I was wondering how you do that. One of the things Chris,
you get to like page 6, and all of a sudden, like, there's this little thing in the corner which says, like, please insert disc 3.
Yeah. You can now start issue 5.
Yeah, one day.
That's really interesting. And Dave, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go across you here, because if there's music in the background, I'm definitely behind a cushion, mate. I'm telling you.
Well, that's definitely something that would help, because I've done a lot of research on horror comics, and it's very you know, there's no such thing as a jump scare in a comic, basically, because something that's intrinsically wrapped up in a jump scare is like the sound. Like, you can't really get the jump scare without the sound. So, you know, if we could work out something like one day where maybe we could have like an online comic where some music plays with it, that would be amazing. But I think you'd have to just remove all dialogue. I just don't think you could have
You're just trying to get rid of the writing now, aren't you?
I guess this will be something I have to do on my own then.
I think for the horror in this, we focused on the characters a bit, and like the whole Lovecraft, our love of him comes into kind of it's looking at characters and how the horror, how they react to the horror around them. So it's seeing how they react to everything that we think is kind of everyone's entry point into it, more than trying to do jump scares. Because jump scares would be nigh impossible in a comic book.
Yeah, it's just it's like I see it sometimes in comics, like you kind of turn the page and something horrible is happening, but it's like, oh, there it is. It doesn't. I just don't see the point in trying to mimic that kind of impact that you get in a film, because it's like a completely different medium. I'm much more interested in just weird character design and just making like spooky angles and things like that.
That doesn't mean like we're avoiding strong visuals, because obviously we've got the page turn. Like our first opening page is kind of just talking about Halloween and showing the kids there. You turn over and you see the characters all covered in blood, and it's a pretty full-on image. But that's not for like the shock aspect.
Yeah,
it's just we want to kind of. I'm quite eager to get straight into a story straight away. So it's kind of I try to do what I call a hard open. Straight in there, so the characters are confused, and we want the reader to be there with them.
Yeah, absolutely, and it definitely it brings that across, because you drop right in the middle of the story there. But I mean, talking about the no jump scares, there was one panel in particular that gave me the chills a little bit, and I'll talk about it because you mentioned it. But things sort of coming out of the portal, that first moment when something starts to come out of the portal, and the kind of camera angle, if you like, looking up at the person looking down at the thing coming out of the portal. That was pretty creepy. I have to say.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I think a lot of like my sensibilities in terms of like what I do with the art comes from films. I'm a huge horror film fanatic. So something that I think I've done, I think I've been fairly successful with it, is to kind of not show too much. Like I haven't got the full monster coming out of the kind of beam of light. It's just kind of inferring that something pretty nasty is coming out of that thing, and then you can kind of let your imagination do the rest. So that's probably what that is. You probably have an idea of what the thing looks like in your head, but it's not completely shown, and that's why it's effective.
That's brilliant, and I think I'm not sure if that's just the way your vision of it, but again, it kind of takes me back more to the 70s and 80s and how they kind of shot things, because they had to do that. Whereas now with a lot of the CGI, they can go a little bit overboard with showing everything, and some of the suspense is kind of taken out of it. I always use something like Jaws as an example. You hardly see the shark.
It's so effective.
Yeah,
this is kind of similar to Jaws, with the fact that they're both really character pieces at heart. So obviously you've got a giant shark or whatever we have, but it's more about the characters that are kind of wrapped up in the story. That's our focus. So MHG's done like a fantastic job of conveying the characters' emotions just from seeing how they react to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, are you behind the sofa there? Because you've been unusually quiet. Chris is the talker usually, so I just wondered if he talking through that panel he'd gone.
No, you're the comic book guru, Dave. So I'm just soaking it all in. When they heard Jaws, my ears pricked up. I thought, we're talking about movies here, but no. I mean, to be honest, I am, like I say, I'm an absolute coward. My wife, it drives her mad when it comes to horror stuff. So I'll be interesting to read this. And like you say, I'm going to get it right, MLG, because obviously it's very, very interesting to see how my reaction is, and if it does put the fear of God at me, because I'll be honest with you, if I watch something that's slightly scary now, I am literally under the quilt. It doesn't matter what happens, and I'm gone. I'm not even lying to you. I will not watch. I'd rather watch a gangster film where they're stamping all over someone's head or whatever they're doing than just some guy jumping out of a cupboard or something. I think I watched Insidious a few months ago. And the wife's like, we're going to watch some more. I was like, we are not watching anything. And there's no way I go to a cinema to watch anything like that. I'll be absolutely petrified. So I want to sort of get to the end of the whole complete project, just for my own thing, to see if I can sit there and actually read them, because I'm so bad at watching them. So it'd be really interesting. With the music, I think that's going to tip me over the edge, I'll be honest with you.
Well, you have said you're going to literally crap yourself, so
yeah.
You don't want to be a liar now, do you?
Well, I think they do some sort of tenors version for men. I know it's not supposed to be, but you know, no, it's really good. I mean, when it comes to stuff like this, obviously, is this on a par with some of the other projects you guys have worked on, horror related comics and panels and stuff? Is it? Do you think this is scarier, or it's something that it's just, you know, it's a totally? I suppose it depends. It's people's perception as well at the end of the day.
Yeah, for me, it's a very different project, but I haven't gone at it with the intention of trying to be scary. I've tried to be eerie and tried to, like, we've got this character story we really wanted to tell. So it's probably more down to MLG, the scariness of it, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think it comes across as well. Sorry, MLG.
Oh no! I mean, yeah. For me, it's it's one of the most more ambitious projects I've worked on, because usually I do sort of editorial illustration and like poster design. So Mike and we've usually worked on kind of like short one-off comics together, like 6 pages long at maximum. So this, for me, like, I've had to really pull like a lot of resources from, you know, like weird films and stuff like that. And like I said, I wasn't trying to do anything to like scare people, but I really like things like uncanny. Like, if you look at the image long enough, maybe it's like, oh, there's something, you know, like you were saying about sort of like the angle of that one image. You know, that's obviously something that gets used so often in horror films because for some reason it works. It's just you put the camera at a slight angle, and all of a sudden it's a bit spooky. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of weird angles.
I remember we had quite a lot of back and forth of like the opening page. The opening page is 3 panels, like I said, just showing where it's going to be. But we had a lot of discussion on getting the angles right, so it's kind of like a little bit, you know, Evil Dead when you're kind of looking at it, just because it's off kilter. And MLG's done a fantastic job of kind of adding that into his framing throughout the comic.
No, you can see that as well.
Absolutely. I think, you know, it's surprising, or a little bit surprising to me, MLG, that you haven't done that much of that sequential sort of storytelling before, because it doesn't come across at all. There's no way I'd have been able to tell that unless you just said it now. So yeah,
quite
really
good. I didn't realize I could black it. Well, yeah, no, I do a lot of I do storyboarding as well. So I think you'll probably notice throughout the comic, I do really like to gravitate towards like a nice wide panel. That's where I feel most comfortable kind of working in. But I like, you know, I've tried to keep the paneling quite tame, in the sense that it is quite uniform, because I just wanted to be able to focus on the artwork. I had some ideas about doing some weird stuff with the framing and the panels, but I just sort of thought to myself, like, I'm doing like however many tens of, and like, it's like nearly 40 pages, this thing. I was thinking, all right, maybe I'll just be safe with that and keep it kind of like by the numbers, but then just really go through it with the artwork. And I think for Mike and I's next project, I'd really like to do some weird stuff with paneling. But I am obviously really, really happy with how it's come out.
That's awesome. So I'll pick your brains shortly on what you guys are doing next. But you mentioned wanting to work together. So how did that collaboration first come about?
That was like I met Mike at the first Comic-Con that I ever got a stall at, and Mike, I think you were working on, was it Dead Roots?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I edited an anthology. It must have been like 10 years ago, called Dead Roots. It was a big Share Royal Zombie anthology. I was kind of just trying to find more people to kind of add to the roster for that. And I found MLG, and he had some little comics, and I just loved his style even back then. So I kind of approached him, and we got chatting from that, and I asked him to work on that project, and he said no. And
he's playing hard to get, obviously.
Oh, he emailed me. He emailed me. I can remember because he emailed me like a month or two later and be like, "Oh, actually, I said no. Can I change my answer to yes?" Because I think we had a few more previews out, so I think it happens a lot with artists getting approached by people. Like, "Oh, I've got this great idea for a comic. Do you wanna come on board with it?" They must get that offer a lot, but I think he started to see quite a few things coming out for that comic at the time. I think that kind of helped him, and he wanted to come on board. But that's when we first met, and we've done Samurai Slasher and other stuff, and we've grown to be quite good friends over the years as well. So that's really and like I said, we've got a lot of shared interests. So when you're looking to create, personally, I'm very privileged with the fact that I can choose who I work with. So I'll work with people that I like. And MLG, his artwork's always been good, but recently it's becoming phenomenal. So I was really eager to work with him on the
Oh, you.
Right, stunning work. Generally, like it makes it easy for me because I could just put no effort at all into the writing, and we'll probably still say it's incredible. So yeah, I was eager to work with him. So yeah, it all kind of just fell into place very, very slowly.
Yeah, it's been a slow burn, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So do you remember which Comic Con it was you guys met up at?
Yeah, it was the Kapow Comic Con that Mark Miller.
I think I was probably there.
Oh, really? It was at the Business Design Centre in London.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. So I went to. I think there was only two of them.
That's right.
Two, and then he did, just. Sort of
he was too busy counting money, I think.
But yeah, the first convention I did, I remember I was selling a comic book about a story I'd written about a man getting stuck in his own bathroom, and I'd done another comic book about it was a really, really strange concept. I must go back to it, actually. It was about a Roman legionnaire who found a pair of aviator sunglasses in the desert, which like magically made him really good at fighting.
Right.
Are you sure you need to go back to
it? And for some reason, you still thought my stuff was good. Well, maybe you were looking at the art and not the story, obviously.
Maybe they were mavericks.
I actually remember really liking the tile story, actually.
Yeah, no, well, I was actually thinking about that today. I should definitely do something with it because it is a very nice, quaint little story. So I can see how that garnered interest. Absolutely.
Can I ask you both a question? Now, this having both of you together as a creator and writer and everything, and so esteemed and stuff. Now, me and Dave have an idea, right? Now we've pitched this to David Brent when we interviewed him, didn't we, Dave? Now we are trying everything we can because everything we review is has to be comic book based, one way or the other. Now, forget the copyright infringement and all the other problems that you may come across. How about you draw us a David Brent comic so we can review The Office and the David Brent movie? Because we're trying our hardest to shoehorn it into the Comics in Motion, but we just can't find anything with David Brent in anywhere. And me and Dave are massive fans going back years. We've known each other for about 12 years, me and Dave. So if you could just do a panel for us, that'd be fantastic. At least it'll get about 4 episodes in the podcast going then as well.
Guys, this is your podcast, so you can change the rules.
No, we think so. So actually, that's a really good point. One of my buttons is when if you're watching a movie or something and they set the rules out, and Mike, you'll be like this, I'm sure, when you write your stories. If you set your own rules out, you've got to follow your rules. You can't halfway through the movie or halfway through the book. You can't just change the rules because it's convenient to move the plot along.
Unfortunately, one of my major rules is I do what I want.
Well, that's the rule. So I guess
I
for
find
yourself.
it's a lot easier when deciding what projects to do or what kind of creative choices to make. I kind of like, what would be fun? Oh, I'll do that. So I don't worry too much about, absolutely get Brent on.
We need to. And also, now you've just said that, Mike, I do like your way of thinking. We need to all 6 Rocky films as well now.
Well, that I'll happily help out with.
One of my favourite films ever.
So I can usually crowbar something in. So I think there was a Rocky Balboa in G.I. Joe. It never actually went to print, but it was all the artwork was all put together. So when there's a movie like that, I can sometimes. There is a reach somewhere in the comics, but David Brent, I've come up short. So the next Kickstarter, if you're looking for ideas, like I say, just a panel, would be lovely.
I guarantee there will be a kind of a David Brent spin-off in Viz or something,
That's true, yeah.
In one of those magazines. I'm sure that there'll be something you can find.
Yeah. Thanks for humouring me on that, and I'm sure that after this.
As long as you're happy, we're all right.
And obviously after this one, this episode 40, this will be where me and Dave part ways as a duo.
So I have to ask you then, Mike, because you talk about doing what you want and doing just interesting things. My kids absolutely love Adventure Time, and when I say that, what I really mean is I love it and I put it on and I have the kids there with me in the room and they watch it as well. So I'd be doing them a disservice if I didn't ask you a little bit about how that came about and how, I mean, that's obviously very, very different to writing a horror comic. So how did that come about?
As you think. People always say about doing kids stuff and horror, but both of them are just dealing with emotions and reactions. It's about getting the reader to feel something, and kids are really the toughest audience. If they don't like something, they will tell you straight away. They'll put it down and stop reading. But the Adventure Time thing that came from, I did Wallace and Gromit, and when they were putting the book together, I think either I asked my editor or my editor just asked me to pick some stories for it. But I was aware of Adventure Time, but I hadn't seen that much of it. So this was quite a while ago, and I watched it with my kids, and my kids were younger, and they were just completely disinterested. And I was like, no, you'll sit down and you'll watch Adventure Time. Watch it.
What?
No, seriously. Now, and I mean literally now, they love it. As in, they were watching it earlier. I was like, I've got to go upstairs. So they kind of fallen in love with it now, which is a bit of a shame for me because I can't be like, oh, you remember my Adventure Time comic? Because they've gone past that now. It just seems a bit sad if I bring it up. I think it was amazing. I had such fun writing that. That was a really fun experience. I really enjoyed the editor that I worked with as well. So it's like a really creatively fun experience because sometimes you do these work for hire gigs and they're not creatively fun. But this wasn't one of those times. So it was great.
I think for such a creative industry, in any sort of creative job, it's good when you get to work with someone and you actually get along with them as well. It just makes things tick along so much better. It really, really does. So it's always good to hear those stories.
No, I think as well is sorry to cut you off there, Dave.
It's all right.
Me and Dave met. We were in a band. We mentioned this on the podcast quite a lot, but we were in a band. That's how we met each other. I was the gobby one who pretended to sing, and Dave is a talented bass player, and still is. So that's what we met. So this whole comics idea was Dave come on my podcast, but we've always got on. We're really good friends, and we lost touch a bit when Dave moved down south, sort of, and from up Manchester way. But we've always kept in touch through Facebook and the odd comment, and now it's like I just kick myself that we've not been in contact for a couple of years where we didn't really speak a lot. So, and not because we fell out, just because, life happens.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's like, me and Dave, I think I speak to him probably more than my poor wife, and she's in the room. We're chatting all the time and WhatsApp.
It's an married couple now.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, it's a totally different medium as such, but the fact that we get on so well and we're not afraid to tell each other, say like, look, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, not about falling out, and that's the basis of anything great. And like you said, Mike, it doesn't feel, you'll say about MLG's illustration work, and I'm sure he's the same with your writing. It all goes hand in hand, and if you feel you feel like you're enjoying it, then that's the ideal thing. If you enjoy your job, it's not a job, is it? So that's a great.
I think I speak for both of us. We really, really enjoyed making this comic.
Yeah.
Great fun working together, and I think we're both really, really proud of. It's not finished yet, but we're proud of what it will be, because it's just the next thing we're waiting on now. But yeah, it's been a really fun experience. But that's the fun of comics, because as long as you're careful with what you choose to do, then it is always a fun experience, and that's kind of like the fun of what we do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, could you share with us a little bit about, how you guys do work together? Because there's lots of different ways to come out with that comic at the end, isn't there? You can fully script, you can, come out with a basic plot points, and then the artist kind of fills in the space in the middle. So how is it you guys actually work together?
I do full script. I did my MA in script writing, so I do full scripts. But before I get to the scripts, like I had the idea, and then me and MIG talked a lot, and then kind of developed it. And before I started writing it down properly, we talked and we kind of figured out where we wanted to go, and it changed from his involvement, and changed from like me knowing what he likes and what things his art would really kind of add to it. So, I think it's been really collaborative from that point of view. So I kind of wrote the script, sent it over to him to see what he thought, and then I kind of left him to get on with it, and then we've discussed it as he's done like the various stages of the artwork.
Yeah, it's been very I don't really have too much to add to that. It's probably what people imagine it to be. Michael wrote it. There were some revisions and stuff like that, so we'd go through maybe 3 or 4 pages with the script fully done, and then I'd send the sort of the inks and like the pencils and stuff like that. Mike would kind of go, oh, maybe change that, maybe we change this, and we'd do it like we were sort of doing it incrementally. And that way it kind of it was quite, pacing wise, it was quite nice, because I've had it before where like I'll be given like the whole comic to do, and it's actually a bit daunting. And for me, because this was one of the longest comics I've done, I just sort of thought, this is actually quite good, but especially for me, it was quite a nice way to do it, because I'm definitely somebody that kind of panics when I look at the top of the mountain, instead of just like looking at the first base camp that I need to get to. So like working that way was actually really, really good for me.
That's great. I mean, what have you got any other projects coming up? Either you're going to be working together or anything sort of running alongside our final Halloween?
Mike and I have talked about another project that he's kind of like loosely pitched to me, which sounds right up our alley. So
sci-fi kind of looks at media consumption and celebrityism and things like that, and it's dark and fast and bloody and funny, but we're talking about doing that.
And then I'll probably play video games just for November until we kind of like dive into that, because obviously this Kickstarter month has been full on, and I've been doing Inktober as well. which has been just like, it's just throwing another element into the mix. And I've got a real problem with just doing something quickly and just sending it out there and not worrying about it. I'm putting much too much effort into each of these Inktober pieces, and I'm like burning out as we speak.
Oh, good stuff.
As for me, I've just finished a bit called 32 Kills, which came out a couple of weeks ago. So I'm still doing some of the promotional stuff for that. I'm working on the next book of the Kill Screen, and that's half of that's written, so the artist is working on that at the moment. And I'll finish off a book, like a choose your own adventure story, but it's a survive your own adventure story, kind of set in a horror film. And I'm working like a picture too as well, so like I've got a fair few things on at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to this month being over, because this Kickstarter is really fun. Loads of updates. I'm really trying to push it, because we really want to get it in front of lots and lots of people. Like that's why we've geared the Kickstarter the way we have. Normally, when you have the amount of backers we've got, because this is my 10th Kickstarter. I think only 2 of my Kickstarters have had more backers than this, but normally by this point they have about $7,000 more. But we haven't geared this one to make money. We've geared it just to get readership. So it's been pretty full on, because we've just been fighting to reach every single person. So I'm equally as exhausted.
I'm sure it's all very full on, but it is a fantastic concept to run it through October, like you say, building up to Halloween. So if people want to get onto Kickstarter, how are they going to find it?
Annoyingly, on the 1st of October, if you typed our final Halloween, it would have been really easy to find. But as it's got closer and closer to Halloween,
oh yeah, of course.
Flooded.
You'll be able to find it if you type in Kickstarter our final Halloween. It should still come up. It should be easy enough to find. If not, if you can find either me or MLG on Twitter or Facebook or wherever else we might be, I'm sure we'll be constantly annoying people with links.
No, don't worry. We obviously will put all the links in the bio of this podcast, and we will promote the heck out of it for you guys as well, and tag you in, and just keep anything you guys put on Twitter or social media, because we're Comics Emotions on the mine and Dave's personal ones. We'll just share it and retweet it ourselves as well. We always do that for anybody, because we just love the community. So please do that. What's your Twitter handle, guys? Anyway, as well, just I know we're going to link it, but just so people can, sometimes people don't always go in the bio.
Mine is, it's really obvious. Mine's Mike Garley with no space. So it's MikeGarley, and that's what I'm on for Twitter and for Instagram.
And I'm very, very similar. I'm at Mike Lee Graham, no spaces, on both Twitter and Instagram.
Cool. That's great. I think that's it, to be honest. I mean, we can't thank you enough for coming on today. Really.
Thanks so much.
It's been really good, and at some point that David Brent panel will be made. So,
maybe that if we do a stretch goal for the Kickstarter, maybe that's what it will be.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
A completely different comic. No, it's not horror.
To be fair, you may only need 2 backers, me and Chris. You know.
I'll sell my soul for that one. Don't you worry about that, guys. No, thank you. It's been fantastic, and hopefully we'll get you on again as well when the project's complete.
That'd be grand. Yeah, we love that.
Oh gosh,
catch up and everything, and just have a chat again and see how far you're on with our comic as well. Oh, thank you very much, guys. So this has been episode 40. Dave, are you going to lead us out?
Yep, thank you very much again, guys. So our final Halloween, get yourself onto Kickstarter and back that, and then on Halloween you'll have something to read there. So guys, thank you very much again. If you do want to work with the guys, you have to first change your name to Mike. So just be aware of that, So thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
See ya.